Hi, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Erica, and today we will be doing a book review on The Devil's Highway, written by Luis Alberto Urrea.
To start off this video, we're going to be telling you guys a little bit about the author. Urrea was born in Tijuana, Mexico in 1955. Although he was born in Mexico, one of his parents was born as an American citizen.
He grew up in a very poor neighborhood, but his family moved to a mostly white suburb right outside of San Diego. His family doesn't really like the Border Patrol because Urrea said that they've chased around relatives of his.
Urrea wrote this book to retell a true story about one of the biggest border tragedies. Although he had personal feelings towards the Border Patrol, when writing, he always seemed to remain unbiased.
This book is a true story about a group of Mexican men who attempt to cross the United States border. 26 men try to go through the deadliest desert known as the Devil's Highway, located in Arizona.
The reason the men chose this route was because the desert is so dangerous, even the Border Patrol doesn't really go through this section of the desert.
This journey included many potential dangers which risked every person's life in order for a hope to find a better life in the United States.
In Chapter 1, Urrea mentions how their hair was hard and stiffened by old sweat, standing in crowns from their scalps, old sweat because their bodies were no longer sweating. They were drunk from having their brains baked in the pan. They were seeing God and devils, and they were dizzy from drinking their own urine, the poisons clogging their systems.
After this 110-degree nightmare, the outcome of the journey ended with only 12 survivors.
This terrible tragedy happened May of 2001, but the book was not published until 2004. Urrea did his research by interviewing many people, like the Border Patrol officers, coyotes, who were the people who led the immigrants across the border, and also the immigrants themselves.
The men who died were all well within the border. They were being led by a new coyote who had no idea where he was going. Eventually, this coyote tried to steal the immigrants' money and leave them stranded because he just wanted to save himself.
In this deadly desert, temperatures go as high as 138 degrees during the day and as low as 98 degrees at night. Due to this heat, water is a constant problem throughout their journey. Not having enough water led to most of the 14 deaths.
While reading this book, I really enjoyed how descriptive and precise Urrea was with explaining the journey. He used a lot of rhetorical devices to pull you into the book and to make you feel like you were walking through the desert yourself.
Some struggles we both faced while reading the book were trying to understand the fact that all of these tragedies that happened were real and that people actually went through these dangerous experiences. It's crazy to think how big of a risk all of the men were taking just for a hope of a better life in the United States.
I think it's a really heartfelt story to read because all the characters were struggling to live, and Urrea gave glimpses of the men's personal lives and reasons as to why they put themselves through the dangerous journey. Something that kind of surprised me was how bad the conditions were when crossing the desert. I didn't really realize how many risks each person had to take.
I thought it was interesting how all of these men came together for the same reason, and they all trusted each other even though they were just strangers. They were all hoping for a new and better lifestyle. After reading this book, it really opened up my eyes and made me think about how the things I go through may not be nearly as bad for the things other people go through.
The main theme in this book is risk-taking. These men cross the border while risking everything for an opportunity for a new start in the United States. Another thing that plays a huge part in this is courage. On page 5 it says how there wasn't enough fluid in them to bleed. They climbed peaks, hoping to find a town or a river, had seen more landscape, and tumbled down the far side to keep walking. Despite all of this, they kept going, facing each obstacle that had come their way.
Urrea's writing styles and tendency keeps the reader interested. He does a really good job of using imagery to paint an image for the reader to see. On page 147, he describes how Javier was falling behind. The heat was melting his brain. He was slowly going crazy, babbling weird things. They didn't think he knew where he was or what they were doing. This shows the reader how terrible and how unhealthy the conditions were for the people.
His writing style of being very descriptive helps effectively communicate to the reader and allows a better understanding of this whole situation that's going on. In the beginning of the book, I didn't really like how the introduction of the story was so long, but as the book went on, I understood more of the situation, and I was kind of glad that he added so much detail because it made me understand better. Uriah does a really good job of staying unbiased towards the Border Patrol and the immigrants.
Throughout the book, Uriah never chose a side and stuck to an honest truth of how the whole experience was. He interviewed both sides of the story from a whole. I think this had a really positive effect on the whole story because it was honest and very reliable.
I think the audience that would enjoy this book the most is teenagers and adults, because younger children don't really understand immigration as much, and they probably wouldn't understand as much why people would want to come to the United States.
On page 38, it says, think of the border struggle as an extension of the Indian Wars. And I don't think the younger kids would understand as to why this dangerous journey was compared to the Indian Wars, because they can't comprehend how awful each situation was. Older teenagers and adults would like this book because it is a very fascinating and intriguing story which could relate to their own lives.
Well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed our book review.
6 hours later.
Bye!
Bye!